Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Build Order Tutorials. This time we're going to be looking at a TvP build, probably a really basic one that you've seen quite a lot. It's a Widow Mine drop off of 2 bases into a macro follow-up with a bit of a push as well. So let's just get into it. It's going to start off pretty normal. And it's an excellent build to do over and over again until you've got it just right, because it does lead into a perfectly normal mid and late game. Start off with your supply depot. Get your gas geyser. Get a barracks. Build an orbital and a reaper. Command center. Get a factory. Get a reactor and build a supply depot. Build your second gas geyser. Fill your gas. Start a Widow Mine. Get a starport. Start marine production. Build your second orbital command. Put your Widow Mine in a spot where you think an oracle might come in. Get a medivac. Make sure not to get supply blocked. Your Marines can go into your second mineral line if you're afraid of a Stargate opener. Build a barracks. Pick up the Widow Mines in your medivac, put a tech lab on the factory, and then send that medivac across the map. Get an engineering bay. This is one of those do as I say, not as I do moments. I might have forgotten it. And start your tank production. Build a liberator at some point too. And a tech lab on that second barracks. Burrow your Widow Mines. Try and save the medivac with your attack. Get a second medivac now. Build a third refinery. Start stim. Get a second tank. Get a reactor on the starport. Build your third command center. Build a third barracks. Start +1 attack. Get your factory off the tech lab and build a reactor on it. And then at around 6 minutes, push across the map with your army. Get your fourth refinery. Remember not to get supply blocked. Build 2 more barracks. Swap that third barracks that you built onto the empty tech lab. Start building from the reactor and start macroing. Alright, so build order discussion. Start things off on the strengths. It is a great basic Terran versus Protoss build, so if you're just learning Terran or in the lower leagues, this is a great build because it teaches you a lot of different things. It teaches you how to scout, micro, macro, multitasking. It's actually just really good overall, and there's no real hard counter to this because it does lead into a macro game, so you should just, if this is like your goal in life is to learn Terran versus Protoss, then I would actually suggest starting off with this build, although there are others that are perfectly okay as well. It provides scouting, it provides harassment, and it provides safety, especially if you get the tanks, as seen in this build, but there are other ways to play the build out. Speaking of, this build does allow you to change things up a little bit, so I'm talking about you can pick up 1 Widow Mine and 7 Marines. You can pick up 2 Widow Mines and however many Marines. You can do all Marines and then put the Widow Mines out in the middle of the map if you want. You know, there's actually a lot of variation in that. There's also a different build order where you do actually just get tech labs on the factory and the starport and then immediately swap them over once they're done and put barracks on the tech labs, and you're gonna get stim and combat shields kind of paired up together and a lot faster. But it doesn't give you the tanks, and tanks are rather good versus Protoss right now and do provide a lot of safety as well, so that's kind of why I suggested this build here. It leads into a macro game, which is always nice. Don't have to worry about all winning and losing. It can give an auto win in lower leagues, and to be honest, sometimes in the higher leagues as well, if the Widow Mines get really awesome shots. And it can work on any map, because it's a great basic build. The weaknesses of the build. So for beginners, microing the medivac and the Widow Mines, and remembering to build the liberator, and macroing back at home, it can be kind of difficult. It's not just look at your base for 10 minutes and do nothing else, so you might have some trouble with it to start off with. It can be punished by soccer aggression. What that means is that there are certain Protoss attacks that try and even go ahead and get on top of a tank with blink. If you don't go for the tank, they can just blink onto a bio army that's not there if you're, you know, busy dropping and being fancy, like be on the other side of the map, and they can actually overwhelm you. So just, you know, keep that in mind. Maybe go for a wall, maybe go for a bunker if you're gonna feel like they're gonna do something kind of weird. And it can be easily defected by better Protoss players, and that just means the Widow Mine drop. But it's okay because it kind of is into a macro game. Even if the Widow Mine drop doesn't do anything at all, that can be made up for. If you lose the medivac, that's much worse. Try not to lose the medivac, but if the Widow Mine drop doesn't do any damage, it is definitely a detriment, but it's not the worst thing in the world. So the tips and tricks of this build. The Reaper should be scouting for as long as possible, and of course, specifically for early pylon play and proxy oracles. That's been kind of popular lately on the ladder. If you see a zealot pop out, you know, be worried. If you see the Nexus delayed, be a little bit worried, and of course if you see a probe building a pylon, and then your natural, also be worried, and also make sure to check those proxy oracles. The good news is that if you do see something's up and you're kind of like, I don't know what, but I'm going to be defensive, the Widow Mines and the factory tech in general give you a nice start to a defense. Place the Widow Mines in mineral lines until medivac is ready. You can also place the Marines in mineral lines that don't have the Widow Mines planted there. So like you saw when I did it, I put one Widow Mine in the main base and didn't really worry about my natural, but I could have put the second Widow Mine there if I was really paranoid. More likely I just put the Marines over there. And then when the medevac pops out, you can do the mix and match, Marines, Widow Mines, whatever you want, and feel a little bit safer about it. The tanks are a necessity, kind of already went over this, but just to reiterate, you can add the 2 additional racks and use Factory Tech Lab for a barracks. But tanks provide a decent, if not really good push and a great defense, so I kind of suggest going for them. And instead of a liberator, you can make a Viking or a medevac your second go around on that production, because if you think they may have a warp prism, you can get a Viking, and that might be more useful. If you want to go Gosu, Euthermal, Byun, whatever drops, then you can get a second medevac and pick up whatever you didn't already pick up and just try and out multitask the Protoss. It's up to you, so have a little bit of fun, but, you know, I guess it is up to you. Either have fun or continue learning, whichever one. It's a nice build overall, so I suggest having a little bit of variety in it, no matter what. And of course, if you like this content, then consider following me on this YouTube channel, on Twitter, on Twitch, on Instagram, supporting my Patreon, whatever. And also, go ahead and check out my other videos. Thanks for watching.